This is my last day as a 29-year-old because tomorrow I turn 30, and I figured I would do a video with the life lessons that are really important that I've learned throughout my entire 20s. So hopefully this video adds value to you. My goal for this video is for you guys to have at least an opportunity to learn things that have taken me my whole entire life to truly understand in this one video. So that way you guys don't have to spend 30 years figuring this stuff out, because that's how long it took me. I'm also going to celebrate today by playing my favorite video game, The Legend of Zelda. Sure, I've started a business, I've coached hundreds of people on how to earn six figures in the real estate industry, all with a less than 1% refund rate. I've also earned six figures myself, and I purchased my own home. So the first tip is, it's okay to still embrace your inner child. It helps you enjoy life even when the hustle is hard. Here's the next tip. Burnout is real. I learned this in my early 20s when I first started as a real estate agent. I was really excited to get licensed and then start working full time, but I took it like way too far. I would work almost double full time. I think I worked like 11 days in a row. And what happened to me was burnout. And it's the first time I ever experienced it was when I was like 20, when I first started out in real estate. And the problem is that you will work so hard, and if you don't have balance in your life, then the next few days you end up really unproductive or just doing nothing. So burnout is real. You have to understand that. And as long as you just put in little breaks within your work week, then you can avoid burnout, because it's counterproductive. It's like working really hard, taking like 4 steps forward, and then when you burn out, you're taking 3 steps back. So it really doesn't make sense, because then your net result is only 1 step forward. So it would have been better if you would have taken like 2 or 3 steps forward and 1 step back. That's how burnout works. It's real. The next tip, which has to do with burnout, is you shouldn't work longer than like 2 hours of focused work on any task. So if you're on your laptop and you're working constantly for 2 hours, you should get up and then do something, whether it's like walking your dog or playing video games for 30 minutes, whatever it is, because that helps you work more effectively. All right, so the next tip that's super important, sleep is very important. I struggle with this constantly still today. It's kind of like a never-ending battle. If you optimize your sleep, you will perform overall better in anything that you're focusing on, whether it's your hobby or whether it's work, personal relationships, anything. You have to optimize your entire life by getting your sleep schedule fixed. Here's a huge misperception that people don't understand about sleep. And so this will really help you. I invested in something called an Aura Ring. I don't have it on right now. It's charging, but it gives you data on how you're doing with your sleep. And what's really important when you put a piece of tech and you actually track and monitor your sleep is that when you look into the data, you'll notice that just because you're in bed for a certain amount of hours, you're not actually getting those hours in effective sleep. So for instance, people think that if they go to sleep at 12 and wake up at 8, that they got 8 hours of sleep. It's actually not that easy, because depending on a lot of factors like your stress, how much alcohol is in your bloodstream, whether or not you're hydrated, all of these factors go into the efficient sleep that you're actually getting, right? So basically this tip is total time in bed does not equal total amount of hours of quality sleep. And so just because you're going to sleep at midnight and waking up at 8, you're not actually getting 8 hours. Even if you're sleeping at a very effective rate, no alcohol, and you're a healthy person, 8 hours total time in bed really ends up being like 7 hours of effective sleep. And that's hard for a lot of people to even achieve. So for most people, maybe you had a cup of wine like right before bed, maybe you're stressed out. I don't know, maybe you don't work out as a person. When you're in bed for 8 hours, you're really only sleeping effectively like 5 hours. And so you have to understand that. And that's something that I figured out in my 20s is total time in bed does not equal sleep. Okay. So if you listen to other people that say that they thrive over 5 hours of sleep in bed, it's just not true. Don't buy into that nonsense. There's a lot of influencers that are like, I feel great off of 4 hours of sleep, and then on Saturday I sleep 6 hours. That is nonsense, because total time in bed doesn't equal sleep. And there's just so many studies that show that you need at least 7 to 8 hours of sleep as a man, and even more, like an hour extra as a woman. So optimize your sleep schedule. I struggle with this again a lot, but the days that I figure it out and I do sleep a good solid 8 hours, which means 9 hours total time in bed, then your whole life becomes a lot easier. Another lesson that I've learned throughout my 20s is that the amount of money that you make every single year doesn't actually matter if you don't adopt good budgeting skills and then you watch yourself on how you're spending. I still struggle with this today, and I'll tell you that you can make 150K a year, 250K a year, $300,000 a year as a real estate agent, the same way a lot of our students do. But if you're not managing that well or putting some aside for taxes, because as a real estate agent or any kind of 1099 commission worker, you still are responsible for taxes at the end of the year. So if you're not managing your money well, just because you're earning $200,000 or $300,000 a year doesn't mean you're going to actually see that amount or anywhere near that in your bank account. I know a lot of people that have made $250,000 a year, and then at the end of the year, they have nothing. I experienced that some years in my career. And so it's really, really important to understand that you have to look at your bank account. And that is the biggest thing, I think, for everyone, is pull up your app on your bank account and then just look at it at least every other day. Because the problem that I had in my late 20s is I would just buy stuff without looking at my bank account every other day. So I would say like, oh, $80, that's nothing. Spend. Oh, it's $60. Spend. Oh, it's only $200. Spend. Okay, it's $300. That's not bad. Spend. But the problem is that you keep doing that and you're not like multiplying it in your head properly, because you think, $300 is nothing. $500 is not a big deal. $1,000, hey, that's not such a big deal. But then it all adds up. And so if you're not looking at your bank account every other day, what you think was a few $80 purchases or a few $200 purchases ends up being like $4,000 that you didn't consciously think about. And so to solve that, look at your bank account like every other day and see what's happening. Okay, so the next tip is communication. What I've learned throughout my life at this point is that people communicate mostly from body language and tone of voice. This took me a long time to really understand as a person, because I would have debates or arguments or just communicate with people in general. And I would say words. I'm a very literal person. So I would say words to people and then they would disagree. And I'm like, I don't understand. The words that I'm saying are true. So why is this person not grasping? And then what I realized later, becoming older, is that 80% of communication is actually your tone of voice and body language. So just because you're saying all the right things to someone, it's actually more effective to have conversations if you monitor your tone of voice, your delivery, and your body language, because that's most of communication. It's not actually the literal words that you're saying. So this is important, because if you're talking to your partner in a romantic relationship, or your staff has a company, or anyone else in life, strangers, right? You might come off as disrespectful, even though what you're saying with words is respectful. Strangers might see that as disrespectful just because of your body language or your tone of voice. Again, this took me a very long time to figure out in my late 20s, and my family has helped me with this. So now, going into my 30 years old, I understand now that when I speak to people, whether it's clients, students, relationships, family members, I'm actually consciously thinking about, how is my tone of voice, how is my delivery, and how is my body language? Because that counts for 80% of communications, not actually just the words, right? The thing is, if you don't understand that, you're going to really frustrate yourself, because maybe you're a really smart person. Maybe what you're arguing, or maybe the message you're trying to get across is right, but the other person's not taking it well. And then so it frustrates you. You're like, what I'm saying is right. Why is this person fighting me? It builds stress in your life that's unnecessary, because you're not realizing that delivery is most of the communication. So that is a huge thing that if you just understand now while watching this, or at least consciously start thinking about that, it's going to help you in your entire life. All right. So finally, the biggest advice, it's two parts. Number one, everything is your fault. And then number two, there is always a level that's beyond yours. So in other words, you're not the smartest person alive. The first part, everything is your fault. The moment that you understand that everything is your fault and the circumstances in your life has nothing to do with the economy or the president or, your country, or because of some relationship you're in, once you realize that everything is actually your fault, the result of what you're experiencing in your life, then it's impossible to make excuses, because you fundamentally understand that everything that's going on in your life is your fault. So then you start looking inwards to find the solutions, and that's the only place to actually look. So super important, realize that everything is your fault. And then the second part of that is that there's always a level above yours, right? So if you're making $100,000 in whatever field, understand that people make 200,000. Once you make 200,000 a year, understand that in your field, people make 300,000, like our head coaches. And once you're at 300,000, understand that there are other people that make 3 million, right? And so the point here is that just because you're doing well in whatever your career is or anything in life, maybe it's a hobby, there's always a level beyond yours. So you have to like understand if you're doing good, that's great, but everyone needs mentorship. I have a lot of mentors myself. My head coaches that work with me, they still invest in other mentors outside of real estate. In fact, my head coach, Alex, just spent $5,000 on a YouTube coach because while we teach real estate and digital marketing, he could find value in a YouTube specialized mentor. So all of us have mentors, myself included. I've learned from a lot of awesome people. I've learned from Russell Brunson, the founder of ClickFunnels. I've learned from Sam Ovens, the original course creator. I learned a lot of digital marketing skills from like Kevin David. That was my OG mentor. I was the 30th student of his to ever do 30K in a month with one Amazon FBA product. And he had like 3,000 students at the time. So that was cool. And so the point here is even if you're doing good, you're not the best person in what you're doing. So it always serves you to have a mentor and learn from someone that's doing it better, right? Because if you're doing well, if you're going to learn from someone better than you, you're just going to take your success to a different level. A lot of agents or a lot of people, they start hitting, let's say, 6 figures in real estate, and they think that they know it all when they really don't. In fact, just this week alone, we had a lot of 6-figure real estate agent earners join our program because they're just good at closing and they're using Trello as the only tool, right? And so once they adopt sort of like the infrastructure we have in place, they're going to exponentially like multiply their success. And I think that's really cool that we have 6-figure agents that still join our program because they want to do better. And so you have to understand that there's always a level beyond yours, and it always serves you positively to have a mentor to help guide you or take your success to the next level. And those are kind of the biggest critical lessons that I've learned going into 30 years old. And so with your permission, I will end the video now and continue playing Legend of Zelda.